And we are live. So, welcome to episode 131 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. I considered turning this into or revitalizing or starting over the Something Shitty This Way Comes subthread for this movie. But then I said to myself, it's entirely possible with everything that's going on nowadays that I might be a victim of confirmation bias. And maybe this is actually a good movie and I should give it another chance. So what I did was I sat down just before this live stream and rewatched this movie with the Comanche audio track with the intention of saying if I was wrong, then I was wrong. And this isn't actually, a bad movie. It's a halfway decent movie. And, I was prepared to eat some crow and say, hey, we all learn. It's no big deal. I'm not going to be saying that. So let's put that fucking idea right out of your heads. I literally just got finished watching this movie about 10 minutes ago for the second time. I will say with the Comanche dub, it's a lot less abrasive. The Nauru character, the female character, the lead character, she's a lot less abrasive and a lot less fucking annoying than she was with the English dub. And actually, I'm not exactly sure it was the actors who were speaking in Comanche. I think it was actually a complete overlay, almost like with the old Run Run Shaw movies. I think this was actually recorded in English, and then, someone just, overlaid a Comanche audio track. But it is actually something to watch. And what I'm talking about is the newest installment of the Predator franchise, which is Prey. And it was released on Hulu this past Friday. It's been all over social media. And I thought, maybe this was, as an issue of relevant content, worthy of review. So if you're ready, I'm going to get it going. Here we go. So I want to start out by saying that one of the things that actually worked for this movie, and I'm being completely serious, is that it's beautifully shot. The cinematography in this film is fucking amazing. It's absolutely gorgeous to watch. I'm not exactly sure where it was shot, but it's absolutely beautiful. The background scenes and the landscapes and the fields and the forests and the rivers and all these things where the film actually where the action happens, so to speak, it is quite gorgeous to watch. And if you, like me, are tired of, or if you're an American and you're tired of the way things are nowadays with politics and everybody fighting each other, take some time, go travel to some of these places, Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains, or, in the plains in the Midwest, or in the hills of Pennsylvania, and go see the country, go on a hike. It's a beautiful country to see. I actually had the pleasure once to take a train from Philadelphia to Los Angeles. Took me about 2.5 days to do it. And they actually had what's called a viewing car, where the entire car is just nothing but like bench style seating. And the outer part of the entire shell of the car is glass, and you just look out and you can see the country. And railroad tracks don't run along the same routes as highways do, you actually get to see the country. So I got to see all the green of Pennsylvania, and then the flatlands that just went on for days. And then when you finally get to the rocky areas before you start to reach California, it really is something to see. So one of the things that definitely worked for this film was the cinematography. It's a beautiful film in terms of that. So I give it that. Absolutely. Not a problem. The story is basically one of a young Comanche woman, tweenie. Her name is Naru, and she lives as part of a Comanche tribe, and Comanches are hunter-gatherer societies. And, she basically fulfills the role that women had in that hunter-gatherer society. And what she really wants is to be a hunter. So she doesn't want to stay home, and she doesn't want to, do things around the village and, prepare the meals or, the medicines, even though that's something she seems to be highly skilled in when it is medicine. She wants to hunt. She wants to go out with the boys. And that sort of turned me off right away. Because if you want to subvert my expectations in 2022, how about not challenging gender norms in a hunter-gatherer society? How about just having one film where you're not fucking challenging gender norms? Can we just have one fucking movie or television series nowadays when we're doing that? It's no longer 2015. It's no longer 2016. It's been a good 7 to 10 years where it's just been this never-ending trope of challenging gender norms. And I'm sick of it. And they usually come with very weak stories and very weak characters who are already perfect. So there's no room for the character to grow. I've said consistently on this program that character is king. And if you're going to have a main character, you have to have them have some sort of struggle. This wasn't as bad as many of the other types of gender challenging gender norm sorts of stories that I've seen in the past, but it gets there. She's always got that look on her face, that kind of thing. The second time it wasn't quite so bad, maybe because the Comanche dub didn't make things quite so abrasive as it was in English. But essentially, she wants to go out and hunt with the boys. She's got a brother who seems like he's a bit older than her, named Tabe, but he is also kind of a tweenie. And all of the men in the village that are prominent, and most of them go unnamed because you don't take the time to get to know any of them. They're all tweenies. And so initially when I saw it, I kept thinking, where are the men? Like, this village seemed to have one old man who was a chief, a bunch of tweenies, and then women. Like, they had, adult women, but all of the adult men were gone. And so she sort of comes off as kind of unlikable because she seems to sort of know everything already. Even when, she's talking to her brother, and, he beats her shooting this bird out of the sky. Well, I was going to wait for it to come back. Now you've got to go and get in the water, so no matter what, she's got the right answer for you. So you're like, okay, here we go again. It would be different if this was just kind of like a one-off, but it's not, this is something that's been going on for quite a while now. So I'm pretty low on my tolerance level for it. She has a brother. His name is Tabe. He's actually pretty cool. He's likable. He supports her, and, says, well, okay, if we're going to do this and you're going to be a hunter, then yeah, let's do it. Just make sure that, you don't make any mistakes, because in order for her to succeed in the right of, this sort of way of life, she has to be able to kill something that can actually hunt people. So, his basic advice to her is, you can do it, but when you get out there, there's no margin for error. You have to go out there and just, get it done. While this is happening, the predator kind of arrives on the outskirts of town, so to speak. You see it kill. It starts right off killing what I assume is a rattlesnake. The kill is kind of cool. But here's the thing. We had just talked last week, or week before last, actually, about 1987's Predator. And what we talked about, and there were a number of us there, and Marty was there from Dublin, and Eric was there, and Ryan was there. We talked about the fact that it wasn't about kills. It was about the characters. You gave a shit about the characters. You wanted Dutch, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Dylan, who was kind of an asshole. We couldn't believe that Carl Weathers was playing like a, kind of an asshole. And Blaine is Jesse Ventura, and Mac was the coolest character of them all. The one who wasn't like, an overt tough guy from roles past necessarily. Sonny Landham is Billy. Shane Black was in there. I mean, we were invested. Ramirez, we were, Anna. We were invested in all of these characters. We weren't invested in kills. We talked about that, and for a good hour and 45 minutes, we didn't talk about any kills. Here, kills are kind of the thing that they're what you're left to look forward to, because there isn't that much of a story there. But okay, I said at the end of the Predator video that one movie does not make a franchise. And I haven't seen much that's changed my mind since then. But it turns out that, a mountain lion is injured one of the Comanche tweenies. And so all the other tweenies go out with Naru, and they're going to, kill this lion. Her brother is like, it's your kill. It's yours if you want to do it, but you can't fuck it up. So her idea is basically to, create a hide spot and to hide in this tree, and we're going to wait. And when the lion comes, bang, and we're going to kill it. Bows and arrows, because this is happening in like the early 18th century. And I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time, but there are a couple of things for, certain purposes that I want to cover. In the middle of that, as they're waiting, she's waiting there with another Comanche, and he is just doing this stereotypical sort of mansplain thing. Well, the lion's going to do this to you. And right in the middle of the mansplain, and I can't believe at this point in 2022 that this is a coincidence. Right in the middle of that, the mountain lion just pounces on this guy, and he screams, and he gets dragged away. A couple seconds later, the mountain lion's back on the tree, and she just, falls apart. The whole plan just falls apart. She falls out of the tree, smacks her head, wakes up, and she's back in the village in her tent, in her teepee, in her tent, whatever. So basically, it turns out that somehow we didn't see it, but her brother saved her and then brought her back to the village. And it's a shame, because I like the Tabe character, and it would have been cool to see him actually kill the mountain lion. But if he had done that, that would have set him up as the main character, because there would have been no point. So the thing that probably should have happened wasn't, because this movie seems to sort of have this fixation on female empowerment, and so everything kind of has to stem from there. So Tabe becomes the war chief, and you can see on her face that, she's not pleased about this, because what she really wants is to be the war chief. And so the next day she goes back out again, and she runs into a CGI grizzly bear. It's kind of cool. By this time, the predator has also killed a wolf. She can't kill the bear. And that's when the predator starts to really, make his presence known. By now, we're into the second act. The first act ends where, she doesn't kill the bear. Tabe sets up as the war chief. You see that's what she wants. So the second act opens up, and she goes out and, runs into the bear. And there was this great scene where she's walking out into the wilderness, and all of the other women are walking into, you know, the main area of the village. And I was reminded of that movie The Witch, where the family is going out into the wilderness and all the people are looking at them like, where the fuck are you going? You know, like, you're going to die out there. That's, you know, fucking crazy. And we know how that movie ended. She doesn't kill the bear. It pretty much demonstrably proves she can't hunt, you know, which isn't a fault. She has lots of other, she's very smart. You know, she's good with medicines and things like that. She has a place within the group. I mean, she's not an outcast, but she's stuck on this one thing. There's a very cool shot where the predator kills the bear and hoists it, you know, and it's invisible, and the blood runs down on the predator from the bear that's being held up while it's being impaled on the claws. You know, you see the bloody silhouette of the predator. That came from a comic, I think a Dark Horse comic. But it sort of sets her up as unbelievable as someone who, and you're about 45 minutes into it now. So like the movie's halfway over. This movie only goes for like 90, 95 minutes or something like. So by the halfway point, you're pretty convinced this person isn't, you know, a hunter, and it's certainly not someone who can kill a predator or anyone else, for that matter. At this point, I think 3 of the other tweenies show up to bring her back because they're like, where the hell are you going? You know, we have to come and bring you back. You know, there's just, it switches off into like Iron Man levels of plot armor where, you know, she can't kill a bear. She can't, you know, kill this mountain lion or anything like that, but she can beat up, you know, these guys who want to bring her back. At this point, the predator starts to attack these 3 guys. So essentially, she's responsible for getting them all killed by going off on her own and then having them need to come back and, you know, bring her back. But again, you know, it's plot armor, so that's not really, you know, addressed. It's just kind of glossed over. There are these French trappers who are killing buffalo. I don't want to get too deep into this. I don't want to take a great deal of time. But there are, yeah, I mean, these French trappers, they're speaking in French, in English, and in Comanche. The French isn't translated into English. So it's sort of, you know, dehumanizes them. It's really bizarre. Like, you would think, you know, they would bother to translate the French, but you just sort of see them as these flat sort of henchmen who are evil. You know, they are hunting the predator, I suppose. You don't even get their names, but there's like 10 of them, and you don't get any of their names or really why they're there. Suddenly it switches over into this burnt forest, like the entire forest is burnt. She single-handedly kills like 5 of the Frenchmen. She goes from not being able to kill a lion or a bear or to basically do anything physical. And this is a character who's like 90 pounds soaking wet, you know, maybe 5'2" or something like that. And suddenly she's killing, you know, 5 Frenchmen. The real hero, I think, the most likable character in the story is Tabe, who comes back to, you know, help his sister and has a great fight with the predator. The predator doesn't even consider her to be a threat. It considers Tabe to be the threat, and he sacrifices himself so that she can get away, which leads into the final fight. I'm glossing over a great deal of this, but if you want to watch it, many people have watched it. I think it's like one of the #1 movies on Hulu in terms of premieres or something like that, because it is part of, you know, the Predator saga, you know. And so this builds to the, you know, so now Tabe's dead, the Frenchmen are dead, all the other natives that came back to get her are dead. And then that sets up for the final fight between her and the predator. And then she suddenly can jump, you know, 3 stories off the top of a tree. You know, she can cut off the predator's arm. I'm not even sure how that happened. She could rip out his teeth with her bare hands. I mean, all of this, just the plot armor is it's unbelievable. She could slide between his legs, and then suddenly the predator forgets how one of his own weapons works, and he ends up shooting himself in the head. So basically, that's the movie. She takes the head of the predator back into her village. The only man that I can see at this point is the chief, and he's just kind of stunned. He never says anything the entire movie. The chief never says anything. And she just kind of tosses the predator's head down at his feet and, gives him this smug look. And then she becomes the war chief. And, at this point, there's this scene where it's fucking hysterical where, like, she's all the camera pans to like all the different women and they're celebrating, and then she looks over and there's this one little girl, you can just read her mind. Maybe I could be the war chief one day too. And I'm thinking, yeah, if you get a bunch of people fucking killed and take no responsibility for it, you can be the war chief one day. So yeah, it's just it's a really strange movie. Again, it's just set up around the concept of female empowerment, and so it's like they had the ending first. At the end she has to be the war chief, and then they sort of work their way backwards. There's no investment in any of the characters. Naru really isn't a likable character. Again, like we talked about with the first movie, we really liked Dutch and Dylan and Blaine and Mac and Ramirez and Billy and all these different guys, and we liked Anna. We talked about what a cool character Anna was. Most of these characters in this movie don't even have names. Yeah, and that's just kind of the movie. If you were talking about subverting expectations, again, like I said, stop fighting gender norms. How about not fighting gender norms, one, in a hunter-gatherer society, two, how about not fucking fighting gender norms in a movie for once? For fucking once. Can we not do that? You could have had a really great movie where the predator is stalking the village, figures out that the chief is, the leader, and then kills the chief first, which, sort of sets the village in disarray as they scramble, with all these, other kind of resentments, maybe with like between Tabe and Naru and, other characters, but then have the whole village, kind of come together to fight the predator. That would have been cool. Hey, here's a fucking interesting concept for a predator movie. How about a predator movie where the predator wins? How about that? Just one movie where the predator wins. I mean, for some reason, even the predator's batting zero on planet Earth. No matter what happens, the predator is batting zero on his home planet, or that game preserve with predators. The predator is batting zero. So if you wanted to subvert expectations, let's have a movie where the predator actually wins. Yeah, that's basically the movie. It's not a good movie. Again, it's beautifully shot, but there are no characters in there. You're focused on kills, and yeah, I mean, I don't see the point. I can see why people would watch it because it is the latest Predator movie. But what really strikes me is this overwhelming sort of thing where people are saying it's a masterpiece and like the best movie since the original. And I'm like, what the fuck movie are you watching? I mean, hold on a second. I'm going to have a little dinner here for a second. This is the best movie since the second one? But I think we're at peak Hollywood wokeness, just at that point before the wave starts to break. And so even a movie like this, where, so many things happen in here that just make absolutely no sense, people are going to tell you, 9 out of 10 people, at least on social media, are going to say this is a great movie and it's fantastic and it's the absolute best. It's not. It's at best a meh movie, and that would be a generous review, a generous description. My personal, I gave it out of 5 stars, and this is something we've been doing on the show recently. I gave it 1 star. 1 star. Probably for the Tabe character, because other than that, it would just sort of be insufferable. I really don't have much of an opinion on the Predator design. I didn't necessarily like the skull mask. And this seemed to be, again, a different type of Predator. And again, another thing that's not explained. But yeah, I mean, it didn't really have any impact on me one way or the other. Hold on a second. Somebody's here in the comments. It's Eric. And he says the Predator has to win eventually to be able to get that pistol back and give it to Danny Glover in part 2. Yeah, I don't know if this means that. Well, I assume that it means it would have been great at the end of the movie if, like, you had seen 5 ships pull up over the village, or like an armada of ships and like, we want our pistol back. We're getting that fucking pistol back. That would have been a cool ending. Kind of like the ending of Dark Was the Night. Where they kill the monster, but then you look outside the building and there are like 20 of those things outside. That would have been a cool ending to the movie. That's not what we got. But I don't see this. Hopefully, I hope this doesn't come back for some sort of sequel, because they don't really seem to have much of an investment in making a story. This was more about, her becoming the war chief than anything else. Oh, do we? Okay, because I've tried to get through. I got to look again, because how far, you're in the chat, how far into the credits does that happen? Because clearly they're going to get that pistol back. They want their pistol. Okay, so maybe it's like a minute or two. I went through like 4 or 5 seconds or so. I think there's some sort of animated credit. I guess I just missed it. I've watched the movie twice now, and I just missed that part. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't get. Hollywood makes tons of shitty movies, and they make tons of shitty movies, and they're all about nowadays. Okay, all right. It happens during the credits with the animated drawings. Okay. Hollywood makes tons of shitty movies, and they make, basically almost anything you watch nowadays, especially if it's coming out of Disney or Hulu or Marvel or Star Wars or something like that, is basically going to be about challenging gender norms. So that's nothing new. And, to say that a movie is crap is nothing new. And, certainly not for me to say that. That's nothing new. But just, what really boggles my mind, it really bakes my noodle, is how many people saying that this is some sort of fucking masterpiece. So again, I think that we are literally at the high water mark in terms of wokeness. This character was not a complete Mary Sue, but she was pretty close. And as the movie progressed, for some reason, they just inserted that on her, even though she had failed these other things. Suddenly she could just sort of kill predators and kill 5 men, with her bare hands. But yeah, I mean, that's just where we're at with things nowadays. I said I wasn't going to turn this into something shitty, and I'm not. But one of the things I did do with something shitty reviews is I would suggest something that was better. If you watch this or I watched this and I didn't like it, then I would suggest movies that were better. And I've got 2 here. If you're looking for a decent follow-up to the Predator 1987 blockbuster, here's another one that can get you going. I think that this is a fantastic movie because it has likable characters. It has good performances. You've got Adrian Brody's a little questionable as a, jacked up guy. Okay, fine. But you had great characters like Danny Trejo, Lawrence Fishburne, Walton Goggins, Topher Grace. You had a lot of people who could actually act in this movie, and this to me is the second best movie. I wasn't a big fan of Predator 2 because I just don't think that Danny Glover was strong enough to follow up Arnold Schwarzenegger. Danny Glover is an actual actor. And sure, he does lots of action in Lethal Weapon movies, but he's always sort of the backup. And I thought that that was a poor casting choice. The second movie that I would suggest if you're looking for a good or if you're looking for a 5-star Native American film is Hostiles. With Christian Bale, Rosamund Pike, and Wes Studi. You've got a number of great Native American performers in this film. We just covered it about 3 or 4 weeks ago when I did it with Sydney from Cinema Cities, and it is just one of the best Native American films I've ever seen, and maybe the best film I've seen in the past 20 years. I believe they're both playing on Hulu right now. So if you want to check out a decent Predator movie and then a more than decent Native American movie, that's the way to go. And in closing, I would simply say this. This is not the first Native American ever to fight a predator. Okay, that's my review. If you like the video, maybe consider subscribing if you see it in the replay. If you didn't like what I had to say, thanks for sticking with me this far. I'll be back on Thursday when I cover Summer of Crime presents No Country for Old Men. And then on Friday, I'm going to be interviewing Kat Pulver, who is the widow of the famous horror fiction writer, hard-boiled writer, dark fantasy writer, Joe Pulver. And she's going to be on here, and it's going to be a real treat to talk to her. And she's going to be here with Julia Morgan, who was here with me just a short while ago. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, see this movie if you like it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking, anything. You like what you want to like. I'm just saying it's not a great movie. I don't know if he was Comanche, but he was Native American. Why the feral took wolf head and bear don't. Again, I don't think this was a movie that was really built on designing a logical plot. I think it was just about kills and making sure that Naru became the war chief. That's all this movie was about. That's all. It wasn't anything about characters or explaining the methodology of the Predator or anything like that. This is the wrong movie. If you're looking for something like that, you probably want to go with the first movie. I'm the first person, again, to say, well, one movie does not make a franchise. I liked, again, this movie, Predators, but I'm not really sure that this is an actual franchise because they haven't been. I mean, it's been, 35 years? 35 years, and I don't know how many movies, and they haven't been able to make one movie that is equal to the 1987 feature. Again, if you want to subvert expectations, how about a movie where the Predator wins? That would be very simple. But for some reason, here on Earth, the Predator just always loses. So, yeah, that's not... The Pharaoh was a bad blood Yatya. I couldn't say. It wasn't explained. Again, there isn't much that's explained in this movie. Really not much at all. I couldn't tell you. I doubt that the writers could tell you, to be perfectly honest. Thanks for stopping in, though. Hold on a second. That is Liz SS So thank you for stopping in, Liz, and I appreciate you dropping a couple of comments or some questions. Um, Again, there isn't a great deal that's explained here. We're here in the age of, just kind of female empowerment and gender norms. So questions like that really probably aren't um, at the top of the writer's concern list. So that just happens to be where we are. But I think we're starting to move out of this sort of, craziness that we're seeing. And, channels like this one and much, much larger channels are actually pushing back where you didn't see that sort of thing maybe 5 or 6 or 10 years ago. People were like, what the hell is this? And now, it really doesn't have the same impact. But, that's just where we're at right now. Okay. My thanks to everyone for stopping in, Eric and Liz, SS, for asking a couple of questions. Thanks, everybody. And that's it. Good night.